So my favorite people in the world of trampoline, tumbling, and double mini. And this morning I'm joined by two-time Olympian for Great Britain, Kat Driscoll. Good morning, Kat. How are you?
Morning. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Or on Irish one, I can say what's the crack, and you can understand what I'm saying. How have you been?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's we've got into a rhythm of obviously what we're doing, and we've been pretty fortunate that we've had a fairly normal kind of block of training now because we've had an elite exemption, so we've been able to go in and train for quite a while now. So the weeks generally feel as normal as they can right now.
It must feel weird though, because normally in the run up to Olympics, you've got at this stage you'll have a couple of World Cups under your belt, you'll have Europeans coming up in a couple of weeks. How does it feel? Does it feel like there's an Olympics coming up?
I'm going to say yes because we keep talking about it.
Obviously.
But yeah, it's what was really hard was we accepted the decision last year, absolutely the right call, and then it was kind of like, right, okay, now we'll start looking forward to this, and we started looking to all the different events that we would have this year, and then like one by one they started being like, oh, this has been cancelled now, and this has been cancelled, and we're not going to go to this. And I think it was just that weird bit of not knowing what was going on, that it was like, is the games really going to happen if all of this is being cancelled? Is that going to happen? And then you started thinking, oh, there's no point thinking it's going to happen now because it's not. So we've gone through quite a few kind of
emotions.
Yeah, and it's the only thing that feels weird now is that potentially we could go to a games now, having not competed internationally since February of 2020.
Yeah, Baku would be your last competition. There's not even the British Championships or anything before that because they've been cancelled as well. And will that affect you, do you think, or have you just been so much competition over the years that you'll be fine?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like how long I've like competed and stuff now. Like the trampoline's gonna be the same size. Like the people we compete against are all the same. It's when you try and like just remember all of those like familiar things. It's kind of like whatever. And we'll do as much like testing and pressure testing as we can over here, and we'll probably travel off to different gyms in the UK just to try and get different environments and control as much of it as we can. Because obviously we definitely will be doing controls at Lilleshall, but we've all been training there for so long now that feels quite comfortable. So I would imagine we'll just go off to maybe some other clubs and just do some stuff there just to, I guess, test the nerves out in a different way. But it'll be weird, but
it's good as well that you've competed in the arena before. So that's a plus. You've done in 2019 you've competed in the arena, so it's not going to be completely new. So that'll be a comfort for you probably.
Kind of. I mean, I didn't have the best experience. I had food poisoning last time I went to the Worlds in Japan, so I can't say it gives me the best memories, but at least I do know what it's like.
Pack loads of food. You'll be fine. You need to get selected first.
Oh yeah, there is. Well, all three of us will be going out to Japan, and we'll all be travelling out. They're taking a reserve out, so all three of us.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so there'll be 3 girls going out, so we know that at least that we'll be sharing that experience together. So it'll just be who's coming.
And has the second spot for Great Britain been confirmed yet? It's more or less, isn't it?
Yeah, there's still one more World Cup to happen. If it happens, that's been pushed back now until June, and I think they have until the end of June to host it. And if they don't, then they'll just go off what's happened so far. But I think looking at like the maths of it all, I'm not sure that we can lose it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not ours until FIG tell us it's ours.
Say it's yours, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't really say officially, but yeah. Just keep going.
We're pretty confident we've got 2 places, but we'll wait for FIG.
Right. Well, I'm going to get into a bit about your journey because obviously we're talking about what's happening now. But so when I was researching all this, and in case anyone was confused about your credentials as a trampolinist or your legacy, I'm just going to read through a couple of things I've put down here because it's just amazing. So obviously start off multiple world age medalist, world and European team champion, world champion, world synchro champion, and world games synchro champion, multiple European individual medalist, European Games individual medalist, world individual finalist, World Cup Series champion, the first GBR person to be a 2-time trampoline Olympian, and an Olympic finalist. Like, see, when you hear that, do you look back and all that? Do you ever take stock and think back and go, oh my God, I've done a lot in my career?
Honestly, not really. The only time I've ever really done that was, it was post Rio, and I was really convinced in Rio that would be it. Like I kind of said that after London, but then being so close to the final for 4 years, all I thought that was making that final, and that was kind of the drive. And then I remember on the competition floor in Rio, I'd done my final, and I just didn't want to be around anyone. I was like, this is it. Like, I'm done now. Like, this is, when you want to take it all in, but then it kind of got a bit emotional. I was like, it's the last time I'm ever going to do this. And then kind of came back and then was sorting all the stuff out in the house, and I was sorting some medals out. And it was when I got all the medals out and started looking at what I'd won from when I would have retired after London and what I'd kind of won, that was when I was like, oh, there's quite a lot of medals in this box. And that was the first time I was kind of like, oh, this is okay, this has gone pretty well. But it's one of the things you do a competition, and then it's like, right, next, what comes next? And you're always looking forward, and you're always looking to like what comes next. So I don't really look back that much until someone obviously mentions it, and then you're like, okay.
Yeah, because like this one thing when you look at interviews with like pop stars, and one interview with one of your favorite pop stars, Harry Styles, he said that when he was in One Direction, the biggest regret is that he didn't take it in and he didn't get to experience and just enjoy it at the moment. It was always, what's the next concert, what's the next arena, what's the next whatever. So it's definitely, I think, a lesson to athletes as well, to take in and celebrate the wins as it happens.
Absolutely.
Because it's not going to, like, it might not happen again. When you made the Olympics that time, you didn't know you were going to make another Olympics, so you need to take that in.
One. You
what, sorry?
It would never be another home one. I think that was the thing about London. I wished I could have bottled a bit more of that up, because everyone always says to you when you go to games, it's so big and don't get carried away by the rings everywhere, and it's the same event, blah blah blah. And then you get there and you're like, you do get carried away by the people you see in the village, and it's not the same for us. We don't have multi-sport events that we go to, so I don't know. And it all just happened in. It feels like in a bit of a blur, and there's so much of it that I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done more of this, or because I was on my own as well. I didn't really know anybody else, so I felt like a kid out. They had like photo booths and things, and for Rio, we messed around in that for a long time. It was three of us, but when I was on my own, I was like, I was like really shy with everything, and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd just embraced all that stuff a bit more. So that's one thing I do say to the younger kids now, I'm like, just take everything in and like document as much stuff as you can, take as many photos, as many videos, because they're always great to reflect on. And in this day and age, they can, with the way they've got like camera phones and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have it that thick then.
Yeah, we weren't lucky like that.
So going back to the beginning, how did you actually get involved in trampoline? How did you start trampolining?
So I got to older brothers, and on like half term and like end of school things, we used to go off and do like a week-long course where you got dropped off in the morning at 8 o'clock and picked up at 4 o'clock, and you just did sport all day long. And you just tried loads of different things, and trampolining was one of the sports that they offered. And the coach spoke to my mum at the end of the week and just kind of said, oh, like, do you want to bring her along to the local club? Like, she's picked it up really quickly, and we think she could be quite good. And I was a bit like, yeah, okay, whatever. I was only 7. I was like, whatever. So we kind of did that. And then it was once I got to the club and saw kind of the bigger kids there and all the skills and stuff they were doing, and they were doing like, just like, obviously like just simple stuff, but back some sorts front, some sorts of brownies. I was like, wow, this is wicked. And then when I found out like the competition side of it, that's when I was hooked. It was all about the like, how could I show off what I've been doing? And
were you always competitive even from back then?
Yeah, I grew up with both my brothers are older, and I used to be like really competitive with them in everything that we did. So that was probably where I swam at the same time. So all three of us basically did everything together. So we're all in a local swim club as well. And so there was always competitions on who got their 50-meter badge first, or their like 100-meter badge first. And mum and dad didn't care as long as we were all happy. But between the three of us, we were just like, well, I did it before you did it, or I did it when I was 6 old. And yeah, we were very competitive.
And did you show talent straight away? Did you show promise straight away? How long did it take you to progress, like to British national level or whatever?
I'm not sure. Everyone's always said, obviously, like I picked it up quickly and I learned skills really quickly. I was never a very pretty jumper. I was always really scruffy, like bent legs. I've always had really pointy toes, but bent legs, like couldn't straighten my arms, all that kind of stuff. So I started when I was 7, and I did my first British when I was 10 or 11.
Okay.
Is it a different system back then to how we have it now? So we had it so it was novice, D, C, B, and A, and then they brought in like a B nationals the year kind of I did B nationals, so that's kind of like there was an extra one to get up to, but it would be an easier, quicker path through every grade than probably now, I would imagine. Yeah,
because back then you had to hit a score to get on to the next level. Now you can just enter whatever level is appropriate to you.
Yeah.
And what about world age? How long did it take for you to get to the stage where you were thinking about international level?
I wasn't thinking about it at all. I had no idea what was going on. So I did world age in 98 was my first one. And I think I was second year 11, 12. Yeah, I was second year 11, 12. And I kind of got quite lucky with it, because I think I must have been ranked, well, it's obviously the top 4 go. And I remember someone said, and I didn't notice at the time, someone had said back to me, oh, the only reason you made the team was because so-and-so's family couldn't afford to go because it was in Australia. So really you were the 5th ranked girl or whatever it was, but because someone else's family couldn't afford to go, like you became the 4th ranked girl. But because you used to have to put an intention to go to World Age and kind of, so it wasn't that I wasn't selected, but they were like, had they been able to afford it, you would have been in the team kind of thing. I was like, okay, I still went though. And then so I went as kind of the one that shouldn't have made the team, as people were saying, and then I came out as the top Brit, but I had no idea what was going on. Like I was just 12 having the time of my life in Australia. That was great.
Was that your first international at all? Had you done international before that?
I don't think so. No, because I don't think the first internationals we did were when we were, no, because my first international that I did was a Germany versus Great Britain youth match when I was 13. Because you used to have to be 13, didn't you, to do?
Yeah, the junior one.
Yeah, and the only thing you ever did below that was World Age.
Oh, wow. So your first ever trip to international competition was Melbourne?
Yeah, or Sydney.
Sydney, Sydney, yeah.
And it was, so we went in 98, so 2 years before the game happened, but everything was starting to kind of be put together. So my mum and dad have got some cool pictures and stuff of us.
You're saying you didn't know what was going on. Did you have heroes kind of coming through? Like when you were that young, did you look up to some of the ones who were on the British circuit at that stage?
I guess so. There's certain memories that I can remember. So we were talking a little bit before this started about Andrea Holmes, and I remember when I was, I'm going to say 7 or 8, the British was at, it was held in Gillingham, and I was one of the little girls that marched the top 10 senior men out, and then I think it must have been the next year. It was either that one or the next year. National Synchro used to be a separate event, and that happened at Gillingham. It was the one where Andrea Holmes announced her retirement. And I remember them doing this big speech, and so she was the first person that they made this big deal that she was retiring. I was like, she must be amazing if they're like, everyone here is talking about her, everyone's looking at her, and she wasn't even on the trampoline. So I was like, this is amazing. So I remember going back and asking loads of people loads of questions about her because I was fascinated what kind of the big deal was. So apparently I used to ask a lot of questions about her. But other than that, I don't really remember much of an idol thing until I got a bit older, and then it was Jamie Moore. I just wanted to be her on trampoline because she was just
she was stunning on trampoline, wasn't she?
So good. So I was like, how do I get like that? So she was probably my first real trampoline idol that I can remember.
How did you get to look? Because obviously now people can just look up on YouTube or whatever, or the BG Score app, and they can watch all the performances. How did you get to see trampolining back then to be inspired?
Well, I was at Gillingham at the time, so Martin Laws and stuff used to always have loads of camcorder footage that used to get recorded at all the competitions that would be on a VHS, and you could we used to have the media room next door to their office upstairs, and you could go in there and put the videos in and watch whatever had been recorded on someone's camcorder.
Would you go and watch much stuff?
Back in the day? Oh, I loved it. It used to be how do I do that stuff? I was fascinated by as a kid, I was quite lucky that I trained in a group with Gary Smith and Matt Swather and all that lot. And so I always trained majority with boys and saw all the skills they were doing. So I was always like, I want to do that. How do I do that? Teach me that. Whereas all the other girls I trained with that were around my age all wanted to do the pretty stuff and were bothered about leotards and all that stuff. And I was like, no, screw that. Give me my football shirt. And how do I do that? And so I learned all the tricks and stuff dead early. And then I had to figure out how to make it look pretty afterwards. So I kind of did it the opposite way.
Did obviously Guy went on to become an Olympic finalist. Did that put in your mind the kind of Olympic pathway? Because around that stage when you were becoming an international champion, that's when Olympics had been announced, and obviously Guy went on to do it. Had you started thinking about Olympics back then because you were training with top level people?
No, well, apparently as a kid I'd always said to my mum and dad that I was going to go to the Olympics. We are a sport mad family, and I just love sport. Any sport, I'll watch anything. And I used to always watch the Olympics and be fascinated, and used to say to my dad apparently all the time, I'm going to be there one day, Dad. And he's like, okay, wicked. What are you going to do? And I was don't know, but I'm going to find something to do. So I was fascinated by going to the games, but I never really thought that the games were an option to me until I remember in 2008. I'd been around, so I turned senior in 2004, sorry. And I'd been around some of the stuff happening for Athens. And then I remember in 2008, I won the first Olympic trial, but I wasn't even considering that I was part of that
contention.
Yeah, at all, because I had Claire and Jamie that I definitely thought were both way better than me. Obviously, was Kirsty still around then?
No, she was gone at that stage.
It must have just been those two. And I remember they both had I think they'd fallen. I think I'd beaten Jamie and Claire had fallen off maybe, and it was a big shock. I remember it was down, it was a grade 1. And it was this big shot that she'd fallen off and I'd won it. And everyone started talking to me about the games. And I was like, oh, there's no chance I'm going to go to that. And never really before that had been a thing. And then that was the point where I was like, oh, maybe. But not this one, but, like, oh, maybe I could go to the game. So it was probably that little taster of being so close. And then what happened, it was the first year that Team GB did a, what did they call it? It was like a thing that if they thought you could go to the next games.
Oh, the aspirations.
The ambitions program it was, yeah. So that was the first year they did that. So they took out. So it was me and Emma Smith that went, and we got kitted out. We got to go down to Birmingham and like get our own little bits of kit, and then they obviously flew us out. We went to the holding camp. And then they flew us up to the village. We got to go into the village for the day. We got to go and watch the trampolining. Like we got to go and see all the Team GB stuff. And that's when you're like, yeah, okay, I want to be back here for this. That was probably like what was
the start of it.
Yeah, and I don't really think I'd thought much about it before that.
You said you keep saying about training Gillingham and training with all them. And then what brought you up north? Because you're now a northern girl and you've been there for quite a long time. Well, you're not a northern girl. You're you're a northern adoptee.
I'm a Midlands girl now.
Oh, Midlands, actually, you've moved down again. Yeah, what brought you up north then?
Well, taking a detour though, because I went from Gillingham to Reading up north.
Oh, so okay, so you went to Sharon and then...
Yeah, so basically, in a nutshell, I was just a bit of a brat. And I remember Martin, so I grew up in Gillingham with the boys, like I said, and a pit. And I remember Martin saying to me in a session, right, you've got half an hour, go learn something. I'll be back in half an hour showing me what you've learned. So I was like, all right, within like 5 minutes, I taught myself like Briny and back or something like that it was. So then I just sat around for the next 25 minutes. And then he came back over and he started, not shouting at me, but like being angry because he thought I'd done nothing for the whole time. And I was like, you told me to learn something. I learned something. And he was like, you've been sat on your backside the whole time. I was like, well, I haven't, because I learned the skill first. We sat down in this argument. And then it got into, I was just a bit of a brat and got a bit shouty. And he was like, right, I don't want you to come back until you change your attitude. And I was like, all right, then I won't come back then. And I just refused to go back to the gym after that. I was just a little brat. And so mum and dad, we had all these mediation meetings and they were trying to get me to go back. And I was just like, no, I'm not going back to train with him. You can't make me. And my mum and dad were like, well, what are you going to do then? I was like, I'm going to train with Sharon. And my mum and dad were like, but she's in Reading. I was like, right, well, you got a car, haven't you? And my mum was like, yeah. And I was like, right, we're going to train with Sharon then. Because at that time, she was one of the junior national coaches.
Okay.
And I loved going to train with her at the squads, and we had a really good relationship. And yeah, I was just like, right, I'm not going back, because I was just really stubborn. And so I left there, went to train with Sharon, and then we had a great relationship, and she made like improved.
You still do?
Yeah, still do. Yeah, and it got to a point where I felt like I needed to find myself as an adult and the person who I was, because everything about when I was at Gillingham, it was all about what I wanted to do, and I did what I wanted to do, and no one ever really
reined you in.
I wouldn't say like control is the right thing, but I had free reign literally to do what I wanted. So then I had the extreme when I went to Sharon, where she planned everything out for me to like what I didn't, she's supposed to what you did in every session and what your routines and do. But before moving to Sharon, I would just make up a bowl on the day at the competition, depending on what other people were doing, or I do like one routine in prelims and be like, I've got more I can do, and I'll do a different one in the final. So I never did the same routines, to the point where it was like, right, this is your routine and you need to practice it. And I'd be like, why do you practice your routine? Like, what is this? And yes, we had a good like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years together, and then I just felt like I needed to find me. It had almost got a little too intense, a little bit too much, a little too close. It was almost, I was living up there at that point. It was almost like I had another mum, and I was like, right, I need someone to like let me have space. And so I had 2 friends that were on the junior national team that were from Apollo, as well as then Gary. Me and Gary were really good friends. And so I used to go up and stay with them in the half-term holidays. And Bill was like the absolute opposite of Sharon, where he was just like,
he's so laid back, isn't he?
Yeah, he was just like, please yourself. Here's a trampoline. I'm here if you want me. Get on with it. And it was just exactly what I needed. It was almost like the right environment at the right time to just be able to then have a safe place to go and trampoline, but be able to find out who I was and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And yeah.
And that's so you weren't even good out with Gary at the time, because obviously Gary's now your husband. Mm-hmm. So I always thought you moved up there because you were going out with Gary, but it wasn't. It was going and training with Bill.
No, me and Gary have been really good friends since I was, I don't know, like 13, 14. Like we did World Ages together, we did youth matches together, and obviously then we were in squads and stuff, and we always just got on really well. This used to be back in the day when we had that MSN Messenger and we used to chat Messenger and stuff and whatever. but no, we always got on really well. And then I moved up there, and it was a good couple of years before we started going out with each other. But we'd always been like best friends and all that kind of stuff, so it made it very easy. But no.
It's just nice to know someone up there. So
Yeah.
after you're talking about 2008 a few minutes ago, like you were always probably like third member of the team, fourth member of the team for ages, and it was always about Kirsten first, and then it was about Claire, and it was about Jamie, and then obviously they retired. But there's always a natural step up. But I remember seeing a massive change in your trampoline, and then it went from obviously you're amazing, you're world level, but you went up to world challenging level. Like what changed then, do you think, in that time period? Because you were always a good trampolinist, but you just stepped up. I remember going, where did all those trips come from? And it just really stepped up a level from the outsider looking in. What changed around that time?
I stopped going to the pub and drinking. I moved up to, oh God, what year was it? It would have been I would have had a couple of years of just living up north and living on my own, being more comfortable with who I was, what I wanted to do. I guess just being more settled with life, and then seeing the opportunity, I guess, to be like, okay, it's my time now. Like I've learned everything I can learn from you guys. You've gone now. It's my time. I guess probably just a little bit of that. I don't think there was a hugely conscious thing. I think it was probably a whole range of taking it a bit more seriously, being a bit more settled with life, having a bit more freedom, just being a bit older, I guess.
So it was your decision then to step up, because obviously when some people retire, you kind of have to step up. Yeah. But if you've made that decision to step up, I remember from an outsider, it just was a massive change in performance levels. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I saw you at the competition once going, that's way better than she's been before. And it was phenomenal. So then that led into like going up into the 2011 series. How did that feel to come out of the 20, like, I don't know if people know when they're listening, we have a World Cup series, and you get points at each competition. At the end of the 2 years, whoever's the most points is the World Cup series champion. And did you think going into that you had a chance to win that?
No, absolutely not. That was just about, it more at that point, we were just battling each other all the time. I think like this is where a bit of it stepped up, that suddenly there was 5 of us all kind of doing the same thing, all capable of the same kind of things. And we started having squads together a lot more often at that point. So we were all training on our own, like no one was really seeing what anyone else was doing until you got to a competition. Then we started having squads together, and it's one of those that then when you see what everyone else is doing, you're like, okay, right, they're above me or they're below me, and I need to step up to this, and you start assessing where you're at. So I think that would have definitely helped everyone's level raise a little bit. And then it was just when you went to the competition, I just loved competing. I loved going away. I loved traveling, and like the competition side of it's always been the bit I've loved more than the training side of it. And I guess I just, for some reason, was just super consistent that year. Like every time I went to a competition, I just did the same thing. I could deliver the same routines, and just kept making finals, kept getting medals. And it was a bit like, oh, okay, but next. Because it was always that, but you worry, go to the next competition, one of the other girls would beat you, and then it'd be like, oh, well, I'm not on top anymore. And obviously by that point we were getting closer to a games, and I know I've missed out. I know what changed. 2010, I stopped working. I don't know how I missed this bit out. I was working full-time for HSBC when I moved up north. So I was working 9 till 5 in Durham City Centre, having to get out of work, get back to my car, and then drive up the motorway to get to training. So sometimes I was getting like a maximum of like an hour of training. Sometimes I wouldn't get to training depending on what happened. So a lot of it would have been then suddenly a block of consistent training.
Did you get funding? Did funding become available? Is that how you were able to give up work?
Yeah, so I was working full time at first, and then I went down to part time to see if that would make like a difference. But instead of going part time over like working 3 days, I did 5 days still, but just finished at like 2 o'clock every day, so it gave me time to get home, get chilled, and then get to training. But yeah, so we were getting funded then, so that obviously massively helped. And then we're getting closer to London, and that's because I guess I'd been around that 2008 cycle. I knew that there was a point where if I wanted to go, at some point I needed to step up and kind of make the charge and lay my challenge down for everybody else. I guess I had a little bit more experience to know that I needed to put it out there pretty early on that I wanted to go, and you had to come and beat me.
And was there always were you trying to get 2 spots at that stage? Because there was you saying about how there was Emma, there was Laura, there was Bryony, there was you. Was there a big push to try and get 2 spots for that games?
I don't remember us talking about it as like I guess by that point though, only Bryony had made a world final in 2010. So I think she made the final, and then I think I was 2 or 3 places out of it, and then someone else was just behind me. Can't remember who that was. Excuse me. So I don't think we'd massively talked about it because we hadn't actually achieved that at a world championships yet. I'm guessing the coaches probably knew that it was a thing, but it definitely wasn't discussed with us as like an absolute thing. And then, I mean, we couldn't have been any closer because then Laura came to mind. It was that day, I swear, is one of the toughest days ever because we were on first thing in the morning. And then, so we I think it was like 9 o'clock or something. So we competed and none of us had actually competed that well at all. Like I remember doing my routine and I remember I had to flip. I'd done something wrong. So I'd gone like chip half and half, chip half and half. Then I think I went Rudy out full in half.
Yeah, you did two front skills. You went Rudy out but you were at the end deck with your back to the end deck and there should have been a back skill.
And then did full in half or something.
Yeah. And I swear it looked like it should have been the routine. I remember thinking that's mental strength. What was going through your head then?
Finish. Like, that's always, to be fair though, like I thought that's one of, I will say it's a skill I've always had, that I've never been phased by changing skills around, but I think that's because I probably never trained routines when I was a kid, or when I did compete, I used to just make stuff up on the day. So the ability to just do skills, however, like I guess I learned that early, so then that didn't become like a huge issue, and it just, I don't know, I'd never done it in a competition before though, and I don't remember a time I'd ever linked that, but it just felt the right thing to do at the time to do what I needed to do. So we were all I remember us all leaving the floor and being like, oh my god, like we've messed this up. Like we have, because
Bryony had jumped onto the end deck after her set, but did a good vol. Laura was kind of fine, but wasn't her best. You had changed your skills around. Emma, I can't remember what happened to Emma.
Yeah, Emma was, I don't know what she did. Maybe, I think did she not do a very good set? Oh, I can't remember, but all of us were just so flat. And then the worst bit of it was, in Swansea, we all had people come and watch us. I had all the parents and the kids from the gym come down, and obviously mum and dad and everyone was there. And I remember the BBC had been following us around doing a few bits and pieces. They mic'd me up for like the entire day watching the competition. And I had to keep saying to people around me, I was like, remember a mic on, like it, because it was such a new experience to us. So I had Ollie Williams from the BBC with a camera and a mic and him sat with me and my family and Gary and everyone, watching the competition go on and seeing like how we were like dropping down or staying where we were. And then I just remember like we worked out how many people were left to go to whether I would have made the final. And I remember as soon as we knew we made it, like I wouldn't say I'm a hugely outpouring emotional person. I remember I just cried.
I think I remember seeing the footage.
Yeah,
because it came down to the last flight, didn't it?
Yeah,
you could have been pushed out in the last flight. You were 7th or something. Yeah.
And it was almost that relief, but we'd had the entire day to have to sit and watch it and be like just a roller coaster of emotions. And it was just, and then obviously I was sat there and I remember I burst out crying because we knew that we had that spot and I'd made a final. It was my first world final. It was really cool. Blah, blah. And then I just remember Laura was sat right in front. Was she right in front or right behind? I remember we were really close because obviously all the Brits were all sat together. And I remember, when you suddenly realise something in a moment, and I was like,
yeah, your joy is her heartbreak.
And then she was crying because everyone was crying because everyone's buzzing because we've got the Olympic place, which is priority number 1. But then it was that sudden realisation, like, oh my God, we were like within tenths of having 2 Olympic places and she just missed a final. And it was just a weird whole mix of emotions. That whole World Championship was a whole mix of emotions. And yeah, that was.
It must have been good to go on though to win the especially for Lauren and people like who didn't do well, to go on and win the silver medal, because that was the first team medal you'd won in a long time.
Yeah, we all said that was that for us, that was the start of everything, as us being like a team, because we'd never been a team before that, because we've never needed to be. There'd always been kind of like drama around the team with like obviously everyone focusing on going to the games, and it felt like when we were on the competition floor, we didn't really know. I think we'd qualified 2nd or 3rd, and then we were just buzzing that we were in the team final because none of us had done that before.
Yeah.
And we were like, I think,
oh
my God, it was that bit of like, I knew when I went that we had a chance of, we thought 3rd, because I think there was, we must have qualified 3rd because there was Karen and one of the Chinese to go. And I remember being like, we're going to get a bronze medal here. This is amazing. And then we ended up beating the Canadians, which was just mental. And I remember we just smiled and giggled for like the
atmosphere in that arena was on, because it was a packed arena as well, wasn't it? Yeah. Like home arena, packed arena, first world medal, team medal in a long time. It must have been just amazing feeling.
It was mental because for prelims, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, no one was there. So we had to compete in the arena with at least other people when they came in later in the day, like it'd start filling out. But then it was mental. So we had that, and then we had to do all the interviews and stuff afterwards. The BGTV were there. We'd never had to do all this stuff before. And all of a sudden we were kind of the competition floor and we had to do like interviews, and obviously we were all like giddy and giggly and smiley and whatever. So that was really fun. And then the next day we had synchro prelims, and then me and Parker were winning after prelims, which we'd had a really great series anyway. So we knew that, like,
you're hoping to make final,
but the final was like a thing, and then we thought, right, we can have a good show. We'd won a medal at every competition we'd done together, so we were like, right, we've got to shout for this, but like, you know what synchro's like, it works. And I remember we qualified first, and we were like, oh no, you think that's you just never want to qualify first because you're the last one to go up. And so we were just like, okay, we're just going to go with it. And so obviously Parker hadn't made the individual team, so she was only doing synchro, so that was her first experience of being in that arena or competing in it.
And
I remember that synchro final was holy. The crowd was loud that time, and I remember being like, and the routine was so good for like the first 7 skills, and then our last 3 skills were out, but we were just buzzing to get a medal. Everyone else I think was a bit disappointed because they thought that we were winning, like we started off so well that we could win. We were just like, we got a medal, like we'll start with that number 1 and then wherever. And then I remember I got pulled for doping that night, and I had finals the next day, and we had an early morning like podium training session. And I remember I was like, it takes me, I'm always the worst person to get doping. It takes me forever. And I remember we were there till whatever time it was at night. They only had water. There was no other drinks there. There was no food. And I remember, so I'd done my first sample, and they were like, it's too dilute. And I'm like, well, we've only got water. Like, it's not going to get any better. And I remember I just sat and cried. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I had final the next day.
Oh, God.
The emotions of like the 3 days before that. And I was just spent by that point. And the next day, I was just a mess. You've got a medal here, go for a medal. And I remember going really big in that final and just,
it's all experience, isn't it?
But yeah, I learned from it.
So you said that's the first time you were a team, but then all of a sudden then it goes into the Olympic year, and all of a sudden you're individuals again. Was that tough? Because now you're competing for that one spot at the games. Did you still feel like a team, or did it become very individual again?
It became a little bit more individual. And I think the problem we had was there was 5 of us, so someone always didn't make a team, and it was always that bit. We had all the trials and stuff before it. So Europeans was the last event, like international event we had before the games, and basically you knew the way the policy was written. If you didn't make that European team, basically
you're right.
I think besides me, everyone else would have been out of contention because you had to use like 2 prelims and 2 finals. And although I like not finished my routine in 2011, I still had a score, so it meant that I still had something. So that was the first bit of it, that like it was so intense because you knew that if you didn't make that team, it was game over. Then we went out to Europeans, and then it all kind of depended on who made the final to then who was still in contention. I did an absolutely shocking bowl, and I ended up being the 3rd ranked for it, so I was fuming because I was out the final. Then we had to do team final that night. Emma was obviously really upset because she was the 4th ranked for it, so that made her she was completely out of contention at that point. So we were 5 down to 3 by this point.
Because Bryony didn't make the European team, so she was out.
Yeah, so she was the first one out. Then it went to Emma, and then I remember we had to do team final that night. And the good thing about Europeans is all 4 people compete, and it's obviously the only time. I think it takes a little bit of the excitement away, but then on the other side, the fact you all get to do it together was really nice.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just so disappointed that I hadn't made the final. And I remember Emma was really disappointed because she was out of it, and it was just, I remember having to have a conversation with everyone, being like, okay, we need to forget what's happened this morning, and we've like, let's go try and fight for this. Like, we were the highest ranked European team at Worlds. Like, let's go for the win. And I remember we all actually then really like got it together for that final. That was our first European like team thing we won together, and that really like that changed it. And then it just, I think from then onwards, it then just went back to individuals again, because we'd done that team bit by that point. We didn't need to be a team anymore, and everyone was suddenly like, we've got 1 trial left now, and it's everyone out for their own, and it became very like very individual. And then we had the weirdest trial ever in Liverpool for the last
in Liverpool. It was amazing for the spectators because the atmosphere in that hall at the time was unbelievable, but it was weird. There was juniors brought in, there was people from abroad, it was one trampoline, just the gym or the Gaufet trampoline, and it was just
but the worst
intense.
They then put the people like Pam and Amanda Harrison, those all competed. We had 2 of the Portuguese over. But the way they did it, it basically built up to it being the 3 of us back to back at the end of the trial. It was just like, everyone's like, right, come on, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And it basically, I remember, it came down to so Laura had gone and Amanda had gone in the final. And it came down to, if I stayed on and did a decent routine, I was going. If I didn't, Amanda was going. It was that weird bit of, obviously, we've been a synchro pair at that point. It's almost like part of you is probably thinking, I hope she falls off now, because then I go to the games. And then part of you is like, yeah, but that's my synchro partner and I want her to do well. And it like just
the emotion must have been unbelievable.
Yeah, it was just crazy because it was so intense, because it was such a small hall and everyone had stayed after the grade 1, hadn't they? And it was just like crammed in there and it was loud. It was good, but
yeah. Was it relief then after that, when because you knew then you had the spot, then you could just relax? Was it good?
It was weird though, because we knew that. So I think it was the 4th of June was the last trial. We didn't announce the team until the 4th of July, because although we knew it, I'd won on the ranking for the way we'd written the policy. It still all has to be approved by the BOA, and you can't say anything's official until they officially announce it. And it was just like this whole month, everyone being like, oh my God, it's amazing you're going. And I have to be like, well, I've finished Tyson thing. We have to wait for it to be like announced. So you feel like you don't fully process it. And then I remember when they did do the announcements, we were training at Lilleshall at the time. So when we first started going back, and I had team announcement and then all the media stuff and kitting out, and then the British was like 2 days later. And I remember having a conversation with Trace, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do the British. Like, there was just so much going on in my head that week because of the announcement, kitting out, and then the expectation of having to be like so good because everyone expected you to be the best one. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, and like, should I do it? And so that whole week as well, I was a bit like, I don't know if I'm gonna do the British, am I not? And then is it gonna be weird? Is everyone gonna be annoyed if I don't do it? And it was just a really weird process. I'm just glad that we don't do it quite like that anymore. We had some lessons from that.
So then once it was announced and you got to the Olympic, what did it feel like having a home Olympics? Like, it must have been unbelievable. It
was unreal, like so good. I remember going into, so normally the gymnastics team don't get to go to the opening ceremony because gymnastics starts on day 1. But Trace was just like, we're going, like, we're definitely going. Do you want to go? I was like, no, I want to go. And I remember we got downstairs, everyone's lining up. And obviously we go in last as the host country. And I remember Trace being like, right, we need to be on the edge. And I was like, why? Obviously she's been to some games, so she knew what she was doing. She's like, you need to be on the edge. I was like, okay. And
they're calling cameras.
Yeah. So they're calling out the sports and what order you go. But obviously they didn't call out gymnastics because gymnastics doesn't normally go. And so Trace was like, just stand here and we'll see if I So we were quite near the front because they were obviously just calling out different sports and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we're marching along, and I remember just grinning the whole entire time. And I remember being in it's a long process to get there. You have to like stay in like these like lines, and you get shepherded kind of all the way along. And then I remember we were in the tunnel before we walked out, and I remember like being fairly close to the front, and then all of a sudden this roar just erupted when obviously they announced Great Britain, and I literally don't think I've ever been so like goosebumps. It was like insane. I remember that whole like lap round, like everyone was just so excited. We were high-fiving all the people on the volunteers, and I remember I got this TV loads high-fiving loads of people, and I just kept getting loads of messages from people. Like my phone blew up that day, so that was insane. And then
the arena.
Yeah, the competition day was just like weird. So we go in the morning and have like a podium training session, and then you chill out the back. But like I said, because the trampoline's the same and it's the same people you see all the time and all that stuff, like that bit, it feels so familiar. I'd done the test event, so I kind of knew how it all worked. And then I remember going out to compete, and you're so in the zone. And I couldn't have been more prepared. I was so prepared. And I remember getting up to like they brought the first lot of us in, and they announced who the people are. I was third up. And it's only since I've watched the footage back I realised how loud the crowd was, because they announced the first person, they announced the second person, they announced me, and I stepped forward and like waved, turned around, and just looking at the people around me, the athletes that are just like smiling and looking at me because it was just so loud. And then like I competed and stuff, and I don't know, I could pick up voices. We managed to get loads of tickets and stuff.
Yeah.
I could pick up voices of people around like the stadium, and I spotted where my brother was sitting, and so that was all really nice. And then I remember after I finished competing, and I was talking to Trace afterwards, because I was third on, I had like the rest of the whole thing to wait. And I remember Trace going to me, I don't know how you did that vault. She went, I bent down to pick the mat up for you as they were cheering for you. She went, and I nearly couldn't stand back up because my legs were shaking. So I don't know how you got on to compete. And I was just like, well, I don't know, like I didn't even think about it. And I guess that's what like the preparation bit's all about. But then,
yeah. See, but
normal.
After you did your things, and after the Olympics, or after the prelims, there was a lot of drama, and there's a lot of stuff online about, did someone touch a mat, did someone not touch a mat, all that stuff. Okay, I won't get into that, but did it take away from the experience a bit? Like, because I remember thinking, like, she did amazing. That was the best the British girl had done at the Olympics to that point. You just missed the final, which is heartbreaking to miss the final by like 0.1 or whatever. But did that take away from your experience a little bit?
I think initially, I remember walking off the floor, And I got to a bit where you go through the media bit, and I saw Mike Wood. Mike's one of my best friends. I've grown up obviously with Sharon, like living with Mike.
Yeah.
I remember I just ran in there and gave him a hug, and I just started crying, and like proper crying. And then he was like, "Remember what you said? You said you wanted to walk away having done the best that you could do. Did you do the best you could do?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that really in that moment helped, because then I was like, right, okay. And just almost like let some of the emotion out. Then went and did all the press interviews and stuff, and like that was a little emotional. But then the best bit of this was, then I got given a bodyguard. This was wicked. Because I see mum, dad, Gary, and everyone upstairs. And this guy's like, "I don't think it's a good idea." And I was like, "No, I want to go and see them. Like, I wanted to watch the, I've missed most of the final because we were doing all the press stuff. I wanted to watch the medal presentation." So I went upstairs, and this bodyguard took me up there, and I was sitting with everyone. Then suddenly everyone twigged I was up there. And it took us like 3.5 hours or something to get out of the arena, because then just everyone wanted photos and autographs. And that, I think, just made it become so much better, because you don't get stuck in the what could be. Like,
you're
so happy about what had happened, and everyone's like celebrating that bit of it, that then I didn't have time to massively like dwell on it or get upset about it. And then from that point on, because I'd had such a good experience leaving the arena, you still leave with that like, that's wicked, and I'm never going to get to do that again. But that was really cool.
Did it make you hungry for 2016 then? Because you were saying you contemplated retirement after 2012, but did that situation make you hungry to keep going for Rio?
Oh, I flew. So I stayed for the rest of the week of London, flew back up to Newcastle, and went straight into training the next day. I didn't even take any time off, like proper time off. And then all I talked about for those 4 years, the conversations with trades, with Craig, with Gary, it was all about, how do I make the final, and how do I not put myself in that position ever again? And it was always about making the final. Everything I did for those 4 years was about, how do I make the final in Rio? And it didn't matter if I made mistakes trying it at the Worlds and the Europeans in the process up to it. It's about, how do we test everything? How do we make sure I've got everything I need, so that on that day, I know exactly what I need to do to never be like that again. And I think it just gave me a really good like tunnel vision to just have something really good to just chase after.
And again, I talked before about your level stepped up. You stepped up again, but there was a big, massive change in the structure in British gymnastics at the time. You know, we got a new chairperson, we got a new head coach, we got a new overall national head coach in Craig, and we got centralized a bit more in Lilleshall. Did that make a big difference to your training and your performance?
Oh, massive, like massive. So we first started going into Lilleshall just before London 2012. And that was when we were like, right, we need to be here. We were traveling down to Bath, and it was just setting up the equipment all the time. Everyone was traveling far away. It just felt like we were just stuck in the middle of a whole, and we just needed someone to just lead and direct the program. And we had personal coaches coming in and out, and it just got really messy. The program wasn't about us being united as one. It was very much everyone looking out for themselves, or you would like be like a program written for squad. And then if you turn up and be like, yeah, but I don't want to do that, that's not where I'm at. No one ever questioned it. And it just didn't seem like we were all on the same like level playing field, and it just felt a bit messy at times. So the best thing that happened was suddenly we had someone to answer to, and then we had someone that was like directing and leading it. And it became, everybody fits under this umbrella. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. There's an option. You can do it your own way. Like, you don't have to be a part of this, but if you're going to be a part of it, this is how we're going to do it. This is our priority. This is what we're going for. We're going for 2 girls at the games. We're going for a medal. We're going for finals. Like, come on board or don't. And I think it just having someone to take all the noise away. So it just became about us in training and what can we do to be better, and got rid of all the distractions and all the negativity and all that kind of stuff. Actually made it like probably the thing that we've been calling out for a while. And then it absolutely made us better.
And that year, 2013, was a huge year for you, because, and it obviously worked. We have World Games synchro champion, we have World Championship synchro champions with Amanda Parker, but also World Team champions for the first time since 1992, since the time of Andrea and all those ones, and Susan Chalice. How did that feel when, like, against the Chinese, like in the Olympic era, against the Chinese, you were World Team champions? How did that feel?
People always say to me, like, what's your favorite memory of like trampoline? And I always say I have two, because I have one that's an individual one, which will be London. Nothing will ever beat that individually, like just that feeling. But the second one I always go to is always that World Championship team final, because it was something that we got to do together. We don't, like we say, it's so individual. There's not a lot of stuff we get to share together. And we finally got to share all this success together, and all the, like, I guess the dramas and stuff we'd gone through to get to that point. And I was last up, and I remember, so in a team final, I watch way more of what goes on than I do individually. And so I'd watched Emma went first, and she smashed it. Like, so she had the highest score, and we were absolutely like so excited about it. We just wanted a medal. We weren't going to win. And then Laura went, and she smashed it as well. And then so we qualified second. And then I remember the Chinese girl that went after Laura. I was standing next to Trace at the time. And then when she fell, I went to Trace, oh no.
That's pressure on you.
Oh no. And Trace just went to me, just take a deep breath. It's just what you do in training. Concentrate on what you need to think about and ignore everything else. And I was like, oh, all right. You know, it was just so like.
Yeah. Matter of fact. Yeah.
And so then I just stayed by Trace's side by that point. I did not leave her in case I'd learned that if anything came up that I got a bit like funny about, if I just said it to Trace, she would give me something really useful to think about instead. And apparently we'd heard loads of people in the audience had been going, because like tumbling, double mini and trampoline was the first time we'd ever been like a proper
team.
Yeah. And I remember everyone asking like Luke and stuff in the audience, well, Kat, just do a set now, because everyone knew that we had to do 10 skills and we won. And I remember Luke was like, that is absolutely not what Kat's going to do. She hates it. She will be doing a vault and a vault only. And I thought it was funny that people thought that. They were like, oh, will she play safe now? That isn't playing safe in my world. And so
no, that's copping out. It's copping out, isn't it?
Yeah. But also, like, my sets at that point, I wouldn't have said were like, like doing at that point. And I remember jumping, and before I got on thinking, if I mess this up now, I'm not messing this up for me, I'm messing this up for everyone. And that just suddenly I was like, oh my God. And I have never been so nervous in my entire life. And I didn't even do a great routine. It was just all right. Yeah, it was enough. But I remember I started getting a wedgie halfway through, and it almost, my attention went to that, and then I stopped thinking about what it would lead to, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't, I was thinking, oh my God, I've got 3 left to go, 2 left to go, whatever. It was just like, oh my God, I've got a wedgie, like, kind of thing. And I remember I finished, and I hate celebrations on the trampoline. I remember finishing, like, clapping my hands, just being absolutely buzzing that I'd like just survived in a way. And I remember I got off, and then I looked at Trace, and I just started crying again. And then I sorted myself out, and then we said to the girls to come down, and you're not really supposed to go to the kiss and cry together, but we were like, come on. And my dad got some wicked photos of us.
I've seen them, yeah.
Yeah, hugging at different points. And it was just that, like, I think we just won. Like, I think we've just won a world team title. It was just, it's hard to describe, but one of the best things ever, because we got to do it together. We all got to, because even Amanda she wasn't in the team, but she was on the floor. So the 5 girls and everything we've been through, we were all together. We obviously had Trace on the floor, and it was so good.
That started off mass, because the next couple of years you were 2012, 14 and 16 European champions. You got medals, individual medals at 2014, 2016 and 2018 European championships. You were 2015 European Games medalist. Did that, going into Rio, did you think, oh, well, look at all that success? We talked about looking back on what you've done. Did that make you confident, okay, this time I'm going to make this final?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that, like I said, we didn't really look back much. It was almost like once you've got one medal, you've been on the podium, you've experienced that feeling, you just want to do it as much as possible. So everything in training was just about whatever comes next, how do we be the best we can be to, to get on that podium again. And I guess once you start tasting it, you're like, I want more. I just want more of it. And I love that competing side of it, and I love the adrenaline of that. And then because you're getting the success, it's easy to just keep riding that. Yeah. And then as soon as somebody else gets success in the team, it's almost like, I want a piece of that as well. So it was really good, because we were so competitive with each other, but it never got like, yeah, it was always really like, I always felt really useful, really helpful, because it was like you wanted to be the one experiencing that, or experiencing it with someone else, because it would have been cool to have been like in those finals with somebody else from your country and stuff. Like, it was just, we knew the power of the pack by that point. And it was like, when you see 2 British leotards lined up in a world final, like, that shows power. That's why we were so proud to always wear the same leotards in all of the competitions that we did, so that when we marched out, people knew there was 2 from Great Britain in that final. Yeah.
You said, but remember years ago you were saying that you didn't know what routine you were going to do, or you made up on the day and stuff like that. In that cycle, you kept your routine quite set and just worked on the fine basics of it and everything like that. Was that a key to your success as well, that you knew what you were doing, you knew you could do that routine in your sleep, and you knew it was going to be good?
Yeah, so the only thing I ever changed, excuse me, is I put the full pikes in at skill 8 a couple of times, but chose my moments kind of when to do that.
So this actually just reminded me, in 2016 European final, you did put the full pike in because you dreamt about it the night before. How did you let Tracy let you do that? Sorry, Tracy, I've dreamt I can do this. Can you let me do it?
Well, I've been training it. So it's my upgrade routine. It only literally changes one skill. So I had been training it, but it was one of those things that we weren't ever going to risk it in a prelims because we didn't need to. So we always wanted to have it available. If there was a point where I needed it, I had it available. And we'd had a conversation the night before, because at Europeans in 2016, I had a chest infection while we were there as well as on antibiotics. And it's a bit of a blur, that competition. I don't know how I got to the final and survived because I was not very well at all. And I remember talking to Trace and I was like, I'll let you know tomorrow, like what I'm going to do. She said, if you're going to do it, you warm it up. The conditions are, if you're going to compete it, then you have to have warmed it up out the back. You're not just
doing it, yeah, cold, yeah.
So I was like, okay, whatever. And then I woke up the next morning, I sent her a message, I was like, I'm doing the 15 today. She was like, why? I was like, I've dreamt about it. I dreamt about it all last night. I can do it. Like, I've got it. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, I've got it. And then I did it. I was like, I told you it's because I dreamt about it. She's like, have you ever done that before? And I was like, I have dreamt before competitions about routines before, but not normally like with a change of a routine or anything like that. It's normally just like the routine, how I want to do it. But yeah, so she let me do it.
To everyone else, all the onlookers, that competition cemented that who was going to be the Olympics, the Olympic team. Not to extent, not the full team, but we knew that after that, okay, you're going and Nathan's going. And I know that wasn't official. I know there was another trial, but to everyone else. So going into Rio, how did that feel different to London? Because you obviously got selected, you've done everything you need to do. Did it feel different? It
felt so different in a good way because I had people to share it with, people to like experience that with, to train with, and it was quite good because we had a lot of comments. So Jamie came in and did some stuff and talked about her experiences. I did some stuff talking about things that I'd learned from London, and it just felt really nice to be. It just felt like we were going to a small World Cup in a way. It didn't suddenly feel completely different, and it just felt more enjoyable just because you got to share it with people. And I just felt
there was three of you this time. You had a team, really. You had a team of people around you this time.
Yeah. And it I don't know, it just felt really nice just to be with other people to experience it and share it with, and it was really cool. I just felt chilled. I felt like I'd done everything I needed to do. And
do you feel more prepared this time?
Yeah, I felt super prepared going into London in the way that I trained my routines and stuff, but that had only been for kind of like 2011, 2012. Whereas this time I felt like it had been 4 years building up to this moment and not just kind of the 2 years and like I'm fighting, come get me kind of thing. It was like, right, I felt like I was steadily progressing over those 4 years. So yeah, I think I just felt really chill because I just felt like there was nothing else I could have done. I wouldn't have changed anything over the 4 years. Like it was just, I'm ready.
Yeah. And what was it like then when you made the final? Was it relief or was it elation? Because the 4 years have been building up to you getting into that Olympic final. What did it feel like?
Well, what we've kind of said now is we probably went a little bit wrong with this because it was always about making a final. Because then when I made the final, I was like, what do I do now? A little bit. I jumped 13th, I think, in Rio. So there was only a couple more to go after me. And I didn't know, because what was different about London and Rio was London, I was in the first group and then I marched out, did my competition, whatever. And then the second group marched out, did their set. And then we just went straight off into polls. But for Rio, they did it where the first lot marched in, marched out. We marched in, marched out, and went like that. So then you didn't know what was going on. I've never done a competition where you're in and out of the competition floor. So you normally get a sense of what's happening on the competition. Even if you're not watching, you kind of you know if people have fallen, all that kind of stuff. So I just had I felt like blind. I felt like I had no idea what had been going on. I remember getting off after my vault and going to race, and it wasn't the greatest vault I'd ever done. I remember being a bit on the side, and I remember going to race. Is that enough? Oh my god, is that enough? Like panicking straight away, thinking I hadn't done what I needed to do. And she just went, I don't know, and I was like,
that's not what you want to hear.
But she didn't know either because me and Bryony were in 2 different flights, so she'd been going backwards and forwards. So once Bryony had finished, she kind of did what she needed to do with Bryony, but then had to come back out the back for me. So she didn't fully know what was going on. And we laugh about it now, and I was like, there's other things you definitely could have said at that point, but it was just a bit like, I don't know. And then when the score came up, you're trying to not look at the score and just look at the place, because it didn't matter what the score was. We had target scores that we thought would be enough to hit a final. And I remember the first thing I saw was the score, and I was like, oh no, we thought 101 or something to make a final. I'd hit 100 points, and I was like, oh no. And I remember looking at the thing and thinking, oh, there's only 3 people left. Trace made the final. I made the final. Yeah, I made the final. And then it was like, Trace like, right, you made the final. Get your head in the game. And I was like, okay,
final now.
Okay, but yeah, it was. I don't know. It was really cool because you finally felt like, okay, that was worth it.
You had your own personal aspirations to make the final, but we can't get around the fact that there was a pressure from the community on you to make the final because funding for the next 4 years, and with the fact that GB Girls had been on top for so long, but had always felt faith to make the final. And I don't want to say it's the last chance saloon, but there was a thing of, if you don't make the final this time, probably funding will be cut. Did you feel that extra pressure as well?
I felt that in London. And I remember saying to Trace before the competition, if I mess this up, trampoline's screwed because of me. And she was like, you cannot think like that. Like, this isn't about that. But then I guess we were so prepared going to Rio that I didn't think about it in that cycle, because I believed that we had two people good enough that we could both make the final, but definitely one of us could have made the final. That I guess I didn't feel that it was a big problem, because I guess I just knew that we could do it.
And with the fact you both made the final, was that because I know like you both had the potential to make the final, but it can sometimes be a bit awkward. One does it, one does. Was it really good that both you made the final?
Yeah, it's cool, because also we both made the final in 2015 as well. So it was almost like, we've done it again. And I remember when we were on the competition floor, we were just like, yay! But then you try not to get excited about it, but you want to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Because the games, it happens so quick. Then because I was at the end of the flight as well, then it's like, right, line up, guys. This lot are going this way, you lot are going that way, and then you march out, and then you got to march back in, and it will happen really quick.
Well, after Rio and after you came back, I heard, is it true that you retired for a minute?
Not officially. On the competition floor, I kind of thought I was done. That was kind of always, I thought, oh, if like I'll go to Rio, that'll be it, blah 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 blah. The problem I had in London was I didn't take enough time off afterwards, because I was so like wanting to just make amends straight away for making the final. So I said I was definitely taking a period of time off. So I think I had 4-ish months probably off the trampoline, and I had no desire to get on in that time either. But part of the reason I'm coming back, I said I wasn't going to make any decisions until I knew we have to have your end of year reviews for your funding. So I had to go into the little in December to have that. And I even went into that meeting unsure of the decision I was going to make, because I said to me, it depends what Craig and Tracy were going to do to what I did, because I knew what worked for me. I knew the system I had that worked with Gary at home, Tracy and Craig at squad. I had all the things I needed. If it wasn't going to work like that at the age I was like, I can't go through a process of rejigging everything and working with different people again. And so a lot of my decisions all depended on what their decisions were as well. So I needed to give them time. They need to give me time. We came together, had a bit of decision, and we were like, okay, let's just take it a year at a time and see how it goes. I didn't know how my body would hold up. Didn't know if I'd still have the same like desire for it all. So it was quite good that I was just like, I need to just maybe give me a bit of time to see what desire I've still got. Do I still want to like go for a games? Am I just unsure if I want to retire? And I wanted to make sure that if I came back, it's for the right reasons.
You're saying about your body holding up. You haven't missed a major championship since you started. How, like, what's the secret of you? Because most people go through either, some kind of injury, some kind of just dip in performance, some kind of skill confusion. What's been the secret of your longevity to that whole time? Or is there a secret?
I don't think there is a secret. Timing for some of it. I had really bad back all through 2012, which we thought was just like overload of training into London. And eventually it got to the point where I couldn't even push like a shopping trolley without having pain in my back. So we got that kind of investigated, had some MRIs, and I had CT scans, and we found out that I had the two levels at the bottom of my spine are completely fused. I don't have any like movement in them whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
But it was just the way I was born, but we'd never known that before. So I had to have some injections and some work done at the bottom of my back, which gave me a period of time out, and I had to fight to get back for World Games. So I sacrificed a little bit of my individual training in that period to make sure that I was back doing enough for us to do
the World Games.
Yeah. So some of it's been a little bit of just smart planning. I don't really know. I just love competitions and I don't want to not go. So I'll do whatever it takes to make sure I get there, I guess. I don't know.
What's it been like? You've now moved from a club situation to, you're centralised in Liverpool now, aren't you, all the time? Yeah. Do you miss the club? Is it weird? Does it feel different?
It doesn't now. So we've been down here for 2 years now, just over 2 years. And I remember for the first sort of 6 to 8 months, I was like, I love my kids. Like, I didn't really train with the kids that often, to be fair, but I'd go home on a weekend and I'd go into training and I'd go and use the gym upstairs, but then come down and I'd watch the kids train, do some coaching with the kids and be around them all like for the Saturdays and the Sundays. And then I was like, this is really weird. Like, I felt really lonely for ages. I was going to training on my own all the time.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the time where the girls were coming in a lot either, or it would be like a couple of days here or 1 month of the week, whatever. So it suddenly felt very lonely, which I don't think I prepared myself for. But I'm completely used to it now, and it's fine now because the girls are in every week.
Because you're in the build-up, yeah.
Yeah, I do miss the club environment. I do miss like the kids and seeing the excitement of them like learning their skills and like putting routines together and going to like the build up to a competition and being able to just help them with a few like little bits and bobs. And I do miss that, but I know that it was the right call for the age and stage that I'm at for what I needed to do. But I wouldn't say I would advise it to most people, like especially early on, like trying to centralize or like going to training on your own and stuff all the time. I think be around the club environment for as long as you can, because
you need that ton. You need that tunnel vision just to be able to focus on your goals and not be missing the other stuff. Right, we're kind of going over time now, so need to wrap up a little bit. But I just want to ask you 2 more questions. What has been your favorite moment in your whole career?
Well, these ones are easy. We kind of talked about them. Like London, without a doubt, will always be special, because what can beat at home games? 16,000 people in an O2 arena is pretty cool. Like I'll never forget that. And then the 2013 World Team Final, just being able to be on the floor with the girls and like experience that and achieve something like amazing. Any team final was always amazing, but that one obviously because of the result and the pressure and whatever. Like, yeah, I could go relive that day over and over and over again if there was an opportunity.
And what about plans for the future? Obviously, you're planning to go to Tokyo. What's your plans for after that, and for the future in general?
I've been doing my coaching qualifications because I really want to work within the program somehow. So I'd like my ideal thing would be to work in the national program with the junior or kind of pathway kids. I feel like I've been around forever. Like I've seen so much change within the sport. Been to so many competitions, and feel like I have so much experience that hopefully I feel like I could help a lot of the younger kids with all of that kind of stuff. So my number one plan would be to do some form of coaching, but there has to be a role to do that. But I would just like to say within sport, like passion for me, number one is sport. I love it, every kind of sport. So finding something within sport would be, I guess, the goal. But now that we live so close to Littlejohn, it makes life a lot easier to stay within British gymnastics or whatever. Yeah, so even just doing some background stuff within British gymnastics, like even in admin, all that kind of stuff, just to be around the sport and try and help in any way. I guess that's kind of the plan. Like it's the thing I've loved the most in my life, isn't it? For the longest.
Yeah, so. You've done it that's all you know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't want to go back to the bank again.
No, definitely not.
Right, I better finish up because probably Marianne's looking at me going, wrap up, because they've got nothing happening in a few minutes. But that's been amazing. It's a phenomenal career. And I want to congratulate your career because it's just been the longevity and never missing never missing the championships and doing everything and groundbreaking stuff you've done has just been phenomenal to watch from an outsider. And it's been amazing to be part of it about my time on the GB squad as well. It's been fantastic. So thanks for the interview today, and hopefully we'll see you in Tokyo. Fingers crossed.
Thanks for having me.